Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things, ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and joining me today is Jill Avey. Jill believes that everyone has talents they haven't yet fully realized. She's inspired to help her clients find deep fulfillment in their careers, both personally and financially. She has been described by those who have worked with her as intuitive, curious, and authentic, as well as a true thought partner who listens deeply to uncover what might not be readily apparent to expand her clients' thinking. Her approach is grounded in research, applied behavioral science, and her own personal experience. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about you and how we connected and what brings you to this audience.
We connected because I have ADHD and was diagnosed late in life. And so it was such an eye-opener for me to figure out what had been going on all these years. And I figured out I had ADHD when I was 42 and got the official diagnosis when I was 48. So I went a long time kind of trying to find my way, but not really understanding what I was struggling with.
Looking back, can you see it? In your teens and young, it was always, and that's what I think is so relevant, that people have a perception or no idea. And so many people are probably struggling with things and have no idea there's help readily available.
Exactly. My brother has ADHD and he was always the one with the problem. He was hyperactive and it's funny looking back, both my mom and I have it too. It's just, it expresses different in women. And so we didn't have that awareness back then.
Absolutely. And you hear anxiety and you think person in the corner, timid, and that it presents in so many different ways. So I really think this can help so many people, because even going through a trauma, my brain doesn't function the way it used to.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's so many people who we think it's like, I must be crazy, I'm doing something wrong.
Yes, exactly. But we're just wired differently.
Right. So what made you look into it later in life?
It's funny because I had an employee who was ADHD and very open about it. And so it was because of him that I started reading. I read the Everything Guide to Adult ADHD because I wanted to learn how I could manage him better and, what I wanted to understand him more. And so as I'm reading the book, I'm oh yeah, I've got that, And so through that book, I figured out that I have ADHD and my husband has ADD. And so it was a real eye opener for us. And that's where I just self-diagnosed myself at that point. And when I got diagnosed, I have an extreme form of ADHD. So it was indeed accurate. And it seemed so obvious to me once I started reading about it.
And in my career, I've dealt with it mostly with children, present problems in school. So and then there is the automatic fear, a parental fear of medication, which I think is a valid concern at any age, but certainly for children. So I've done a bunch of studying into nutrition and what you can do naturally to help, because not everyone wants to go down the medication route.
Right.
What do you do that helps?
I'm one of those people who didn't want to go down the medication route. And while I have used medication on occasion, like for test taking and things like that, where it's really important to focus, I generally don't use it. And so I eat more of a paleo diet, and that really helps me keep mood stability. And I'm very reactive to sugar and to wheat. And so those have been things that I really just keep out of my diet and try to keep the starches down. And so the sugar is kind of the big one for me because I get kind of snappy with sugar, but that, I also will regulate my caffeine as well, because caffeine is kind of a funny thing, because a little bit of coffee can calm you down, but then too much of it then just sort of amps me up and then I can't sit still at all. And so there's there's kind of a happy medium there, I would say.
And there's also a way to, once you understand yourself and what you're living with, to turn that into your strength.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That was really important to me. Once I started understanding this, the way I am, I just always have to know what's going on. And so I started researching and reading books and figuring out what could I do from a coaching perspective to support myself if I wasn't going to do medication. And so I've built up a lot of scaffolding around my quirks, and so that way I can get a tremendous amount of work done now, but I don't have to, rely on the medication for that. But one of the things that I did in this journey was really find out what are the benefits of having this kind of brain, and why is it important that we have neurodiverse people in society. And it turns out that we're the creative thinkers, and we're the ones that come up with the cool inventions and things like that. We can be the life of the party. There's so many different things that we bring that's a benefit. So like understanding sort of the difficulties was the first step for me, but I really wanted to go beyond that so I could appreciate and feel positive and good about myself, and know that I'm bringing something special, even though not every workplace appreciates it. At least I know that, my kind of people are needed too.
And I hope one day every workplace will appreciate it. But I think it's most important that we do as individuals and learn to find tools and strategies so that we perform to the best of our ability with the brain we have. And that looks different for everyone.
It does. It does. And for me, there was just a few key things that I was doing that were sort of driving people crazy that I could see once I started researching it. And I thought, okay, I really need to work on that stuff. I really need to figure out systems to keep me from, for example, missing appointments all the time. I'm terrible with calendars, and time, for ADHD people, time passes differently, and we aren't as aware of the passage of time. And so, it was very common for somebody to be calling me on the phone and saying, oh, you've got someone waiting here in the lobby. And I was out running an errand for the new event coming up, and so that how I handle my calendar and how I deal with time has really changed. And now I very rarely miss an appointment. Still happens once in a while, but
I think that's important also, to recognize our weaknesses and our limitations, and to find ways to still perform given those, because there's alarms, there's so many things you can do to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it as just a part of yourself and not a negative part of yourself.
Exactly.
People listening, maybe at work right now, who might be going, I wonder if this is me. What types of things were interfering?
For me, let's see, there was definitely, getting work done on time and not, often what I would do is procrastinate it till it was all the way at the deadline and then rush. And I always got everything done, but it was always in this mad scramble at the end. And so eventually I started learning I need to really calendar things out by the year, so that I have really good visibility. And I've developed a time management system where I have a lot of forward-looking time, where I really stop at the end of the day and look at what's happening tomorrow. So I don't go to bed at night before I know exactly what's going on the next day, so that I wake up in the morning already kind of aware of what's happening. Because you just can't keep that stuff in your head all the time. Since we don't have that much working memory as with ADHD, we're not just remembering things. And so that was a big thing for me, to figure out how I could really plan my time more. And so there's also, I would say, there's like an increased sensitivity to rejection with ADHD. They call that RSD. And so it was hard for people to give me criticism and give me feedback. And so that's something I really had to understand, was that I'm a little bit more sensitive to feedback. So I have to take it with a grain of salt, but knowing that I'm the grain of salt here, that I'm always going to feel like it's a bigger message than it is. And I don't need to take things quite so seriously, and also practice so that I'm really inviting feedback on a continual basis. And that allowed me to be able to get used to it, versus having, oh my God, somebody told me I didn't do a good job at something. And because we can get really caught in perfectionism and people pleasing, since we, maybe are letting people down in many ways, and then we would try to overcompensate by being so good at everything else. And so it's this weird kind of dichotomy where, I felt like I was failing all the time, yet I was overachieving at the same time. And that's kind of that piece that was driving people crazy, was that I was driving so hard trying to compensate for what I saw as these like defects in me. And that, because I didn't understand what was going on, it was just such an eye opener to be able to put all the puzzle pieces together and realize, like, I'm not broken. I'm just different. And I don't have to work so hard proving myself. I've already done it. I can relax a little bit, just plan a little better, and not make, everybody's life crazy at the end of a project, and things will go fine. And it was a big
And I
change.
think it's hugely important. It's also exactly what you talked about and how you started learning. You were trying to educate yourself so you could be better with what they were dealing with. So it is information. Just to let people know I'm a little bit more sensitive to feedback is data for them. And that's huge. That can change the outcome. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, definitely. You could say, I'm going to react a little bit more than you probably want me to, but trust me, it's okay. and I will get over it. I will calm down, or, just to help them to see that you still need that feedback, because without feedback, I felt like I was just guessing at what people wanted. And that made it really hard for me. That contributed to some overproduction as well, because I was trying to do a good job, but I didn't really understand what that meant, because I wasn't getting that feedback, because people didn't want to hurt my feelings, and they knew I worked hard and tried hard. And so they didn't want me to feel bad, which, I get that, but yet it left me in the dark.
So what about someone who has less control over their daily structure? If they're in a more rigid company, perhaps, or what would you suggest? How can they still turn their weakness into a strength, their perceived weakness?
Well, there's lots of things they can do. And in fact, I created a whole productivity course when the pandemic hit, because people were really struggling to focus. And I knew that was something, I knew I had developed this whole system for myself. And so I have a series, it's a 5-module course. So it takes you through the tools that you need to be able to put structure to your day. Because often with ADHD, we really rebel against structure, but yet we really need it. And we thrive when we have some structure. So figuring out how to give yourself enough structure to do well, but enough freedom to be able to be yourself too. There's a balance there. And so then managing your energy, because we can have a lot of energy, but then we can burn out too. And so how can we work with our energy flows, rather than trying to force ourselves to do things when it's not the time to do it, but also take advantage of when you do have the energy to go ahead and run then,
And no doctor I've worked with has ever explained it in that way. Right? I mean, that is huge. And to have a course with someone who's been through it and is explaining it in a way that the world just won't at this point. That's amazing. So how do they find you and find the course?
It's at joinsuperchargeyourday.com. So the course is called Supercharge Your Day. And and it takes you through all those tools, plus getting the mindset right as well, and keeping your motivation up, because motivation can be tricky for us too. Sometimes there's a lot of knocks we have to take. And so,
and my first one would be, oh my God, modules. Like, I don't do well with computer learning. So what's different? Because the people who need it the most might have that reaction.
Right. Well, they're really short lessons. So they're all like 5 minutes long. So
that's important to know. That's huge.
Yeah. Yes. So that's one of the nice things. It's broken up into really small pieces, and there's lots of tools to use, so that it's very tactile as well. So it's not just the video learning, but you also get these tools that you can then take to your desk and start using them right away. So in the first section, there's tools to start using. There's 22 tools in the whole thing. So
that's amazing. And those are things that I haven't heard of, other things very similar to that.
Yeah.
So
I have a lot of ADHD people in the course, and it can be life-changing for them. People give me the most amazing reviews on it.
Because I think the world's mentality is to fix it. And it's not something that needs to be fixed. We just need to learn how to work with what we're given. And that applies to every one of us, no matter what it is. I have anxiety,
Exactly.
you have ADHD, we all have to do that anyhow.
Yeah. As a coach for all of my clients, I believe in really building on your strengths and shoring up around your weaknesses so they don't get in your way, but not trying to fix them. I'm not trying to fix anything. Like you're saying, exactly, is just working with what you've got and making the most out of that. And we can all keep moving forward. We have plenty to learn and grow with our strengths.
What would you say to people who don't have a supportive teacher, a supportive employer, supportive parent who's dealing with this? Because that makes a huge difference.
It does. It does. I'd say go out and learn. There's lots of good books, particularly books that address your situation. So there's like ADHD for women, or ADHD at work, or ADHD for your marriage, things like that, and really, really learn. And, I can't sit down and read a book either. I listen to everything, and most of these books are on audio just for us. So I think there's lots of time that you can get through an audio book just doing the dishes and walking the dog and driving your car and things like that, that there's really no excuse for somebody to not reach out and learn a little bit more about what you're dealing with, and understand there's also so many groups. We met in a Facebook group for ADHD people, and that's so important to find a community, because there are so many people out there that are just like you, and to be in community, you're not alone. And that's such a powerful feeling to know that there's other people just like you. I still, I still get such a charge out of the post because I'm feeling the same things almost every time. And so it's soothing, and, it helps you. It's comforting to know that there's other people out there who feel like you do. And
Absolutely. So even if you're in a school that isn't, or you don't have anybody advocating for you for these things, find someone. There is a way to find someone, because when you have people in your life who get it, it makes the biggest difference. Like you and they can support, encourage, share resources.
Yeah. And there's people out there. I mean, I know there's people out there that don't even think ADHD exists, but just close your ears to them. Like, it doesn't matter. That's their perspective, their viewpoint. That's fine for them. But you, and it's important to get to know yourself and listen to yourself and know what's true for you.
And not deny yourself tools and resources that are available, because the world has a long way to go when it comes to stigmas and labels. So, that there are so many people who the idea of people knowing that they're getting help is worse than getting the actual, than not getting the help. So many people suffer in silence. So you don't have to be for medication. You don't have to be for therapy. You can find someone in whatever lane works for you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true.
Any last thoughts for people listening?
I think it's important to, I think it's also important to have compassion for those around you who don't understand too. Because if you have a neurotypical brain, you can't put yourself actually in my shoes. You can't actually understand how difficult it is. I remember trying to explain what it was like to meditate to a meditation teacher, and all meditation teachers said to me, "Oh yeah, you get distracted. Everybody gets distracted." And it wasn't until I explained, no, it's, that they say it's monkey mind, and when I took medication, I could understand what they were talking about. My brain went from a band of monkeys fighting to one monkey sitting there trying to entertain himself. And, and when I explained it to, and I acted that out to a teacher, he said, "Oh, please forgive us. We're not trained on this. And we don't understand what you're going through. And thank you for helping me to understand that." And now I see things much differently, and so until we can, start to bridge those gaps, people aren't going to understand. And so that's why you have to let them be them and you be you, and know that, there's going to be a difference, and we can honor each other's differences, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you.
I love that, because that's absolutely true. We need to be as understanding of them as they are of us.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. Your Supercharge, remind me of your website again.
Join superchargeyourday.com.
We'll put it in the show notes. So you can, are you on social media? Can people find you any other way, or just?
I'm at Jill_Avey on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Wonderful. And I think anybody, if you're even questioning, is this me, can benefit from the course you're talking about. And I want to repeat 5-minute modules in case anyone is hearing like course and tuning out.
And I should probably mention it's only $27 too, because it's super affordable. So everybody can have access to it.
And I'm sure they can have access to you. Like there's a way to contact you if they're really connecting right now and want to share anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Through the course, you get actually a video from me that gives you suggestions on what you should pay attention to, especially off of the answers to some questions that you give me. So they do actually get personal access with me through that.
And making those connections is huge. I want to add, when you're ready, having that conversation, even if it's with someone who might not understand, it's a start, because you're allowing them to enter your world and try to understand. And until we give people those chances, the world will continue to walk around less educated.
Exactly. Yeah. I think those conversations are really important, that's how we're going to have a more inclusive world, is to have these conversations so that we can understand each other. And also, you brought up something that made me think of this too, is that don't hesitate to go get diagnosed. Like, just find out if it's you or not, because if you're just wondering all the time, you may or may not take it that seriously. And so, yes, it's always hard to find either a nurse practitioner, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, or a psychiatrist to see. They're always booked up. You'd have to book it months in advance, but it's worth it. It's worth it to get on the waiting list and to find somebody, because then you really know. And I remember when I got diagnosed, my mom said to me, "Why do you have to have a label?" And I said, "Oh, but the label is the greatest thing, because now I know and I can move forward instead of just wondering." And so I think that's an important piece that I find a lot of people really hesitate on that. I did for 6 years. So,
well, and people might think, if I get diagnosed, I have to take medication. I have to go to therapy. And the bottom line is, you are in charge of your own life. Absolutely. And there are people out there who will meet your needs. You might have to do a little digging. Yeah. But there are people who, there are many people who will work with you if you don't want medication. So absolutely, just reach out to have someone help you, or reach out to Jill. Just don't think that what you see is all that's there. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your time. Join your Supercharge.
Join Supercharge Your Day.
Join superchargeyourday.com. I'll get it by the end of the day. And thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Grief Hab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.